let's talk about North Korea and how what we do to North Korea is kind of like what Israel does to Palestine, okay? And a lot of the stuff the United States government says about North Korea is the equivalent of saying, well, Hamas should just release the hostages and everything would be fine. Before World War II, Japan occupied North Korea, okay? And they were brutal as fuck. They were the villains of the world before World War II. They would, like China, all across Asia, they brutalized people. So anyway, they lost World War II and they lost their territories, right? And the people in Korea, they wanted socialism. Like, as a whole, the entire country largely wanted socialism. But the United States is anti-socialism and tries to stop that wherever possible. So they ended up agreeing that Russia could have the top half of Korea and we would take the bottom half. And so Russia got the top half to make it socialist, and they installed Kim Il-sung, that's Kim Jong-un's grandpa. He was a big war hero. He was beloved in Korea, okay? Because he used to fight against the Japanese when they were under their rule. And so everybody loved him. They wanted him as their leader, okay? The United States got South Korea, and they installed somebody who is anti-communism, who really didn't have a lot of ties to Korea, so that he could propagandize and turn the Koreans back into capitalists. Like, we basically occupy South Korea. South Korea is basically a giant U.S. military base. This was supposed to be a temporary thing, and they were supposed to get their country back and be able to reunify it, right? But we had to wait until we had brainwashed the people. So anyway, North Korea decides we gotta free South Korea from the United States because they are occupied now by this other country. So they go in to try to free them, and it turns into the Korean War. And the United States is like, fuck no. And we carpet bomb the fuck out of them. Kind of how what is happening in Gaza now. We were almost that fucking bad in Korea. We killed 20% of their population. We ruined all their farmland, flooded the entire goddamn country so they couldn't grow any crops. So they had like a big famine. People were starving because the United States created a famine there. And then we sanctioned them so that nobody could send supplies in. Like how Israel blocks supplies from going into Gaza, we block supplies from going into North Korea. And no countries were allowed to do business with them if they are allies of the United States. Thought they would fail and buckle and go to capitalism, and then we'd lift their sanctions. But they didn't. They were like, we're not going to fold to the United States. They held strong, and they rebuilt, and they started getting stronger. So the United States made the sanctions worse. And we just kept doing that. Every few years, the United States would make the sanctions worse, thinking North Korea is gonna fail. But they are actually, now, they have like these high-tech cities that are better than our fucking cities despite our sanctions. And like most of the stuff you've heard about them is just blatant lies that they make up. Like they're allowed to go to China to travel. Americans aren't allowed to go to North Korea because the United States doesn't let us go there because they don't want you to see the truth. The United States has the ban. They would let us, for a while, we could go there to travel, and the word started getting out, and so they shut that down. The defectors that come out and tell the big stories, the United States pays them like hundreds of thousands of dollars to leave North Korea and like tell these stories on TV to keep up the lie. But they will never put anybody on the news telling the truth about North Korea. But if you go search around on the internet, you can find people's firsthand accounts who've been to North Korea. You can find books from people who've been to North Korea telling you all about the history of North Korea. The United States just doesn't want you to know.